Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Chapter 13. Josh POV. I walked toward the Mindcom building early that morning. Ian had already left for work when I woke up. I had to admit, he was giving this job everything he had. After years of rejection, he had finally landed a position, and I was genuinely happy for him. We decided to remain roommates. It was his house too, after all. Even though I didn't love him the way he loved me, I knew his feelings ran deep, even if he never said them out loud. Sometimes I felt like I had been incredibly lucky to be loved by so many people, yet all I ever seemed to do was hurt them. I didn't want to do that anymore. I was tired of causing pain. If I thought about it, I had been in relationships constantly since I was 16. I never allowed myself to be alone. One relationship ended, and I jumped straight into another. I was never single. That realization made me question how disconnected I had become from myself. Becoming a therapist was my dream, to help people, to guide them through their struggles, to help them live happier lives. And yet, here I was, unable to untangle my own emotions. But not anymore. This time, I wouldn't run. I would face it. I knew that if I told Ed I was no longer with Ian, he would pour his heart into me. And it wasn't that I didn't want that, I wanted it more than anything. But if I let myself fall any deeper, I wouldn't be able to stop. I needed to stay focused. I wanted this treatment to work for him. I wanted him to heal, to find happiness, to make sense of his pain. Maybe along the way I could heal too. And if that meant not allowing him to love me, or not allowing myself to love him, then so be it. So, how are you today? I asked, smiling. Ed sat across from me on the couch, dressed in his usual black jeans and jumper. I sat in my chair with a notepad resting on my knee. He looked effortlessly handsome, sharp features, warm eyes, a smile that could undo me. I could feel myself falling harder every time I looked at him, and I couldn't let him know. Not yet. Now, he said, holding my gaze with an intensity that made my chest tighten. I broke eye contact and cleared my throat. Last session, we talked about your past, I said. Is there anything you'd like to add before we assess it further? Anything you felt you missed or wanted to say? Outside, the sky was gray from the morning rain. The room felt calm and quiet, perfect weather for coffee. Well, he said slowly, crossing his arms, I'm gay, my parents don't know, the person I love is with someone else, I've got football selections coming up, my best friend will probably get chosen, and I'll mess everything up again. He looked at me with a sarcastic smile. I closed my eyes briefly and sighed. This guy. What are you looking at? He asked, irritation creeping into his voice. Don't you have some theory to explain why I'm wrong? I studied him quietly. Even when he was upset, there was something endearing about him. A softness beneath the frustration. Someone who had learned to protect himself because love had never stayed long enough. I glanced down at my notepad. His name was written there in bold letters, Ed Shaw, with absent-minded scribbles around it. I smiled despite myself. What? He asked again. I shook my head gently and smiled. Coffee. He looked confused, but I stood anyway. I'll make some. This weather calls for it. I poured 2 cups and carefully carried them over. He laughed softly as I concentrated on not spilling a drop. That was harder than it looked, I said, sitting beside him. We drank in comfortable silence. Then I spoke. Sometimes, we judge others without knowing the full story, I said quietly. Sometimes we accept what's easiest for us, or walk away because we're tired of trying. He listened closely. We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, I continued. But we don't always offer that same grace to others. Is that fair? He frowned, thinking. Let's take your mom as an example, I said. Have you ever really talked to her about the past? Truly listened to her side? He shook his head. We don't talk much. Our minds create patterns, I said. They repeat what feels familiar, even when it's not healthy. To move forward, we have to break those patterns. Communication helps us do that. Listening. Understanding the bigger picture. He was quiet, absorbing every word. So, lesson number 1, I said softly. Communication. When we talk honestly, assumptions fade away. And then we can find common ground, or at least understand what's hurting us. He nodded slowly. You're good, he said with a small smirk. I laughed. That's why I work here. And, I added, folding my arms playfully, I give homework. He groaned. 20 minutes, I said. Talk to your mom. About anything. But if you can, talk about the past. 20 minutes? He protested. I can barely manage 2. You can, I said gently, placing my hand on his shoulder. I know you can. He took a deep breath. If you want to get better, I whispered, you have to trust me. He nodded, and then hugged me. For a moment, the world went quiet. I held him longer than I should have, afraid to let go. When the timer went off, reality returned, but neither of us moved right away. I trust you, he said softly. You, okay? He asked, concern in his voice. I stepped back, forcing a smile. I'm fine. He searched my face. Did something happen with Ian? The truth pressed against my chest, desperate to escape. But I stayed silent. I need that homework done, I said gently. Tomorrow at 5. He hesitated, then nodded. You know you can tell me anything. I know. He left and I watched him go. Tomorrow. Ed's POV. Something was different about Josh today. He looked lighter, like he was holding on to something important but wasn't ready to say it yet. I felt it when he hugged me, the way his heart raced. It worried me. I loved him. I still did. But I respected his boundaries. I wanted him happy, even if it wasn't with me. Out. Later that evening, I stood outside my mom's bedroom door. Okay, I muttered. You can do this. I knocked. Mom. She opened the door, instantly concerned. Is everything okay? Yeah, I said, running a hand through my hair. Do you want to have some coffee? And talk? She blinked, surprised, then smiled. Sure. As we walked to the kitchen, my nerves kicked in. This was going to be hard. But for once, I wasn't running. And maybe, just maybe, Josh was right. Chapter 14. Josh POV. So, shall we get started? I asked Ed with a smile. I knew he was nervous. After all, he had talked to his mom, and that alone was a big step forward. I felt more grounded myself after going home to find Ian working. We ate together, talked, and shared a surprisingly easy evening. It felt like we were back to being simple roommates again. Ian had always been clumsy, almost endearingly so, but he seemed steadier now, and I was grateful for that. That morning felt brighter than most. I felt motivated, focused, and genuinely excited about helping Ed, and about seeing him again. The feeling reminded me of being 16, full of hope and anticipation, and the thought made me smile. Between sessions, I returned to reading and writing. Long ago, I had dreamed of writing a book called The Unpleasant Mind, but I had abandoned that dream, convinced I wasn't good enough. My past had never been a safe place for hopeful thoughts. Still, lately, I felt like I was slowly becoming myself again, doing things I loved, reclaiming parts of me I had set aside. Yeah, sure, Ed said, settling into the seat across from me. I sat in my green sofa chair, smiling. Okay, fine, he blurted out. I did talk to her, but not for 20 minutes. I kept smiling, which clearly annoyed him. Inside, though, my heart fluttered. How long, then? I asked calmly. And what did you talk about? For an hour, he said quietly. My eyes widened as I quickly noted it down. That's impressive, I said sincerely. What did you talk about? Everything, he replied. Things that hurt me. Things that hurt her. I found out she never really recovered from losing her parents, or from my dad leaving. She didn't know how to cope when I was young. And she apologized. He looked down, finally letting the weight of it all out. I moved closer and sat beside him. Do you feel better? I asked gently. After hearing the truth? So much better, he said. We're trying to spend more time together now. Actually talking. Bonding. I nodded, my chest warm with pride. "Thank you," he said, reaching for my hand. The touch sent a quiet shiver through me, but I kept my voice steady. "You did the hard work. I'm just glad you took that step." We held each other's gaze for a moment, emotions thick in the air. I gently pulled away and returned to my chair. "Stay focused, Josh. Want to go outside?" I asked suddenly. "We'll continue the session there." He blinked in surprise. "Are we allowed to do that?" "I don't see why not," I said with a playful smirk. "We're still in session." He laughed and followed me. We sat on a bench outside an ice cream parlor, each holding a cone. "What's this for?" he asked. "A reward," I said. "A reward? For talking to your mom for an hour." He smirked. "Maybe I should keep doing everything you tell me." I pretended not to hear the implication and focused on my ice cream. He kept glancing at me, clearly amused. "You should eat," I said without looking at him. "It's melting." He rushed to fix that and I laughed. "Lesson number 2, I said softly. "Control." He turned toward me, listening. "We often stress over things we can't control," I continued. "But we forget about what we can control. Like this ice cream, enjoy it before it melts. Life is the same way." He nodded thoughtfully. "Your football selections," I said. "Whether your friend gets picked isn't in your control. But doing your best is. Focus on that, and the rest won't weigh you down so much." "I get it," he said quietly. "I know you'll do well," I added with a smile. His cheeks flushed slightly and I chuckled. "Now, homework." He groaned. "Meet your dad." His expression changed instantly. "Just meet him," I said quickly. "Listening doesn't mean forgiving. It just means clearing space in your mind." He hesitated, pulling his hand away from mine. "Please," I said softly. "Trust me." I nudged his knee lightly. Twice. "Will you stop?" he laughed. "Not until you agree." He finally shook my hand in surrender. "Fine." Then he paused. "You've been different lately." I looked down. "Different how?" "Happier," he said. I smiled, unsure how to respond. I insisted on driving him home. "Bossy," he teased. We drove quietly. At one point his hand found mine, and I didn't pull away. "How's Ian?" he asked. "He's doing well," I said. "With you," he clarified. I hesitated. "Yeah. I'm okay." He studied me, unconvinced, then smiled. "You're using big words today. That's suspicious." I laughed, and he smiled like he'd memorized the sound. "You have a beautiful laugh," he said. "Did anyone ever tell you that?" "No," I replied softly. "Just you." When we reached his place, he turned toward me, his expression gentle. "I love you," he said. "Even if I can't have you. Take care, okay? Tomorrow at 5. "Tomorrow," I said. He stepped out, and I watched him walk away, my chest aching with everything I couldn't say. I loved him. Completely. Quietly. And without permission. As I drove home, the tears finally came. Chapter 15. Ed's POV. Talking to my dad, after 9 years, felt almost impossible. The thought alone made my chest tighten. What would I even say to him? I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. He left us. Maybe he had reasons, or maybe he didn't. Maybe the weight of responsibility became too much, and walking away felt easier. Either way, the damage was already done. My phone rested in my hand, his name glowing on the screen. My skin prickled as if my body itself was protesting. I blinked rapidly, wishing I could disappear from the moment. From the tension, the fear, the memories. My thumb hovered over the call button, trembling. "Josh," I whispered. His face appeared in my mind, soft smile, calm eyes, the way he listened like every word mattered. The way he believed in me when I didn't. I could almost see him encouraging me, quietly urging me forward. Before I could overthink it, I pressed the call button. The phone rang. Then a voice answered, low and distant. "Keith Shaw. Josh POV. Tina?" I asked into my office phone, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes, Dr. Josh," she replied cheerfully. "Did Ed leave any message?" I asked. His appointment was at 5. It's already past that. Worry twisted in my chest. Did I push him too far? I waited as she checked. Nothing. Document. Would you like me to call him? No, I said quickly. That's okay. Thank you. I hung up and stared at my phone. I had already called him multiple times. No response. My concern grew heavier by the minute. By 6, I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed my coat and keys and drove to his place. The house was dark. I waited. Minutes stretched into an hour, until I finally saw Ed walking toward the house with another guy. They laughed briefly before parting ways. Relief and irritation collided in my chest. I honked. Ed froze when he saw me. He walked over cautiously and climbed into the passenger seat with a smile. I didn't return it. Okay, he said gently. I can explain. You should, I replied, my voice firm. Because skipping a session and ignoring my calls needs a very good explanation. He didn't seem offended. Instead, he reached for my hand. Don't, I warned. He paused, but then gently took my hand anyway, holding it with both of his. My anger softened into something heavier. Do you have any idea how worried I was? I said quietly. You could have just told me you were okay. I know, he said softly. I'm sorry. That was Sean, he added. My best friend. I nodded, embarrassed by my assumptions. Then he took a breath. I talked to my dad today. I stayed quiet as he explained how they met, how he listened, how understanding his father's choices didn't erase the hurt but helped him let go of some of the anger. When he finished, he sighed. I don't think we'll ever be a family, he said. But I have some peace now. I'm sorry, I whispered. Look at me, he said gently. I turned to him, tears finally breaking free. He pulled me into a hug, holding me firmly yet carefully, like he knew exactly how much I needed it. I didn't know how to reach you, I admitted. I was scared. I know, he said softly. My phone died. I should have tried harder. We stayed there quietly, leaning on each other. I'm sorry about your dad, I said. Some things aren't in our control, he replied. I smiled faintly. Glad you remember. I always do. I pulled back slightly. Lesson number 3, I said softly. Forgiveness. He listened. Forgiving isn't about them, I continued. It's about freeing yourself. Letting go of what weighs you down. He nodded slowly. When I finally realized how close we were sitting, I straightened quickly, embarrassed. He smiled. Someone's flustered. I cleared my throat. No homework today? He asked. Call her, I said. Tell her you forgive her. Is that necessary? It's not for her, I said gently. It's for you. He nodded. And next time you skip a session, I added firmly, there will be consequences. Yes, sir, he joked. Then he paused. Were you jealous earlier? Of course not, I said too quickly, starting the engine. He smirked. Tomorrow at 5? I asked. Tomorrow, he replied. As he opened the door, I instinctively reached out, stopping him. I leaned forward and stopped myself just in time. My heart raced. There was something on your cheek, I said awkwardly, brushing it away. He smiled knowingly and stepped out. As I drove home, one truth echoed clearly in my mind. Ed was changing me. He made me want to trust again, to feel again, to love again. And when his treatment ended, I wouldn't run anymore. Chapter 16. Josh POV. What was I even thinking? Kissing him? Really, Josh? I couldn't let him know yet. If I did, it could disrupt his treatment, his progress. I wouldn't allow that to happen, not in 1,000 years. My thoughts were a tangled mess. I was exhausted from being away from him, and yet, I couldn't stay away. Every smile, every gesture, every moment of care from him drew me in. His kindness made me fall deeper, and that realization overwhelmed me. I wanted to hold his hand, feel his presence beside me. I wanted to rest quietly against him, memorizing the steady rhythm of his breathing. Even the greatest music couldn't compare to the comfort he gave me. For me, he would always win. I was torn between my overwhelming feelings and my responsibility to help him heal. Like most great love stories, It came down to sacrifice, putting the other person first. I chose him. I chose what he needed most, even if it meant silence. It would be hard, but I would do it. For him. I drove home quietly, thoughts of Ed following me the entire way. Was I hurting him by hiding the truth? Was this distance worth it? Was I doing the right thing? From the very first night I met him, I never imagined he would become someone I cared for this deeply, someone I wanted to protect above all else. The thought of him being hurt was unbearable. Falling in love with Ed hadn't been difficult at all. It was effortless. He believed I had saved him that night. Ironically, he had saved me from the emptiness I didn't even realize I was carrying. When I got home, Ian was on the couch watching TV. I offered a small smile, still lost in my thoughts. "So, how was your day?" he asked, eyes fixed on the screen. "It wasn't usual," I replied, taking a sip of water. "But it was fine." I sat beside him in silence. The game played on, but my mind was elsewhere, trying to keep myself from being completely consumed by what I felt for Ed. "You should tell him," Ian said suddenly, turning to look at me. I sighed deeply. "No, I shouldn't." "Why not?" He muted the TV. I folded my arms and met his gaze. Because right now, his healing matters more than my feelings. If I tell him, it could distract him. He's taking therapy seriously because he believes in a future, because he believes in us. I know he loves me, and you have no idea how hard it is not to say it back. But if staying quiet helps him become better, then that's what I'll do. That's how much I love him. Ian shook his head sadly. "That's not fair." I gave a small, tired smile. "Life rarely is." Ed's POV. I was in my room working on assignments, but my focus kept drifting back to Josh. He had seemed so upset when I didn't show up. I knew he felt something for me, even if he never crossed professional boundaries. But yesterday felt different. He seemed troubled, almost afraid. I regretted not calling or texting sooner. I never thought my absence would affect him this much. For a moment, it felt like he cared for me more deeply than I'd allowed myself to believe. Being close to him, even briefly, had filled me with warmth. I'd wanted to kiss him, but I didn't want to push too far or scare him away. I sensed he felt the same, and that made everything more confusing. With Josh, nothing was simple. One moment he was my therapist, the next, someone I felt emotionally drawn to. He made me nervous, curious, and constantly wondering what he was thinking. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I went to bed, my thoughts still tangled with his. Josh POV. The next morning, I arrived at the office exhausted. Sleep had barely touched me, and even 2 cups of coffee couldn't clear my head. My thoughts kept pulling me back to Ed, to the urge to run to him, to hold him. Tina smiled when she saw me at the reception desk. "Rough night." "You could say that," I replied, scanning my schedule. My eyes found his name instantly. "Ed Shaw requested a time change," she said. "He moved his appointment to noon. Is that okay?" I nodded, masking my reaction. "That's fine." "He's already here," she added. My heart raced. I hurried toward the elevator, fixing my appearance in the reflection. I'd never felt like this before, certainly not with Ian. The realization unsettled me. Then I saw him. Ed stood up immediately and smiled. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. As I walked toward him, my foot caught on the carpet and I stumbled, right into his arms. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, concern clear in his voice. I nodded, still stunned. His hold was steady and reassuring, like I belonged there. "Why do you always end up falling into my arms?" he teased gently. I couldn't answer. I was too aware of how close we were, how familiar his warmth felt. "I worry about you," he said softly. "You're careful, but the world isn't always kind." His words, and his care, made my chest tighten. Despite the age difference, I felt protected, grounded, vulnerable. "I'll always be here if you fall," he added, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. "Just promise me you'll be careful." I nodded, unable to speak. "We should go," he said, though he hesitated before letting go. I didn't want the moment to end. I wanted to stay there, wrapped in his concern. "I'm in love with Ed Shaw." Then maybe you shouldn't leave me, I said quietly, smiling. He laughed softly and stepped back, and I instantly missed the closeness. We walked into my office together. I cleared my throat, reaching for my notepad. Shall we begin? I asked, trying to steady myself. He settled onto the couch and smiled. Can't wait. I swallowed hard. Oh Lord, help me. Chapter 17. Josh POV. Ed sat across from me, calm and composed. He wore a white button-up shirt with blue jeans, simple, casual, and effortlessly striking. It was a change from his usual dark clothing, which always contrasted so sharply with his fair skin. Today, he looked softer somehow. Different. I caught myself noticing small details. The way his throat moved when he swallowed, the flutter of his lashes when he blinked, the way he pressed his knuckles together when he was nervous. His arms were crossed comfortably over his chest, confident and steady. He carried himself with a quiet strength that didn't match his age. Next to him, I felt thinner, lighter, more fragile. I hadn't always been comfortable with my body. Growing up, I'd been teased for being too skinny, too delicate. Those years of bullying shaped me in ways I didn't fully understand back then. Becoming a therapist was my way of making sure no one else had to feel as alone as I once did. What are you thinking? Ed asked, pulling me back to the present. I cleared my throat, grounding myself. Nothing unusual. Why did you ask for an earlier session today? I have selections this evening, he explained. My game starts at 4, so I didn't want a repeat of yesterday. He smirked slightly. I rolled my eyes. Fair enough. As he spoke, I noticed his fingers tightening together again. Another nervous habit. I smiled gently. You'll do great, I said reassuringly. Just focus and trust yourself. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. I hope so. Then he hesitated. Would you come watch me play? The question caught me off guard. I wanted to say yes immediately, but professionalism held me back. I'm not sure, I said carefully. I have appointments until 6. His shoulders dropped slightly, as if he'd expected the answer. Guilt tugged at me. I'd never adjusted my schedule for anyone before, not even Ian. So why did my heart change its mind so quickly? This matters to him, I told myself. And he matters to me. I could shift a few appointments next week, I said quietly, avoiding his eyes. His face lit up. Really? I nodded, smiling. Seeing him happy made the choice feel right. I had to stop myself from doing something impulsive, like hugging him or saying too much. So, I said quickly, changing the subject, did you call her? I tried, he replied defensively. She didn't answer. I chuckled softly. That still counts. Silence settled between us. For the first time in my career, I didn't know what to say. The truth pressed heavily against my chest, threatening to spill out. My emotions were beginning to overpower my principles, and that scared me. If Ed came with a warning label, I thought I would have run the other way. You okay? He asked gently. I'm just dealing with a few things myself, I said with a soft smile. Concern flickered across his face. He stood and stepped closer, too close. I could feel his presence without him touching me. He lifted his hand and rested it gently against my cheek. You can tell me anything, he said quietly. My heart raced. I know, I replied, my voice unsteady. He lowered himself in front of me, resting his hands lightly against my knee. Is it Ian? He asked. Did he hurt you again? I stared at him, overwhelmed by his concern. How could someone care this deeply, knowing they might never receive that love in return? I leaned into his hand before I could stop myself. Don't do this, Josh, I warned myself. Let him be your strength, not your weakness. I pulled back gently. Ian is fine, I said quickly. I just need to sort a few things out. I placed my hand over his briefly. Let's continue, okay? He nodded, though confusion lingered in his eyes, and returned to his seat. After a long pause, I spoke. Lesson 4, I said steadily. Forgiveness. He listened intently. Forgiving others is harder than asking for forgiveness. But holding on to resentment weighs us down. Imagine dragging ropes tied with stones, each stone a hurt we refuse to release. Eventually, we can't move forward. He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, I continued softly. It's about freeing yourself. We talked about his parents, about understanding without excusing the pain they caused. I gave him time to process, knowing this was one of the hardest steps. I'll try, he said quietly at last. That's enough for now, I replied with a smile. Then I added, homework. He groaned, making me laugh, until my smile faded. You need to meet Ian, I said gently, and forgive him. He stood abruptly, anger flashing in his eyes. I can't. Just talk to him, I pleaded. He took something from me, Ed said, his voice breaking. Something I can never get back. Tears burned my eyes. If you can forgive your parents, I whispered, you can forgive him too. Please. He looked away, rigid with emotion. I stepped closer and gently cupped his cheek. His tension softened instantly. He steadied himself by placing his hands at my waist, not pulling me closer, just holding on. We rested our foreheads together, breathing slowly, sharing the quiet weight of the moment. In a barely audible voice, I said, it's forgiveness. Chapter 18. Ed's POV. I left after our session feeling conflicted, angry, confused, and unsettled. Yet somehow, Josh always managed to reach me. No matter how stubborn I tried to be, I found myself listening to him. I hated that I couldn't say no. He affected me far more than I wanted to admit. I struggled with the idea of forgiveness. How could I forgive him, someone who had hurt Josh? The person I loved and protected. And yet, Josh had forgiven him. That alone amazed me. Josh was different. His emotional depth, his ability to forgive and care so freely, it was rare. He gave without expecting anything back. That was why I fell for him. Deeply. Even when it hurt, I chose him. Every single day. Before Josh, my life had been chaotic. Now, I had a growing connection with my mother and a tentative peace with my father. Josh had helped me see my life differently. So, I made a decision. I would choose Josh again. I would give Ian one chance, only one. If things went wrong, I would walk away. But that meeting could wait. Today was about the game. The selections. I was nervous. The competition was intense, and Sean was one of the best players out there. But this time, I had something new, someone new. Josh would be there. For once, I would have someone cheering for me. That thought steadied my breathing. I love him, I realized quietly. Josh POV. When I got home, Ian wasn't there yet. I needed to tell him about Ed meeting him, something I probably should have mentioned sooner. I dialed Ian's number. Hey, he answered. When will you be home? I asked. Not sure. Why? I might have scheduled something without asking first, I admitted carefully. Silence. Josh, who is it? It's Ed, I said calmly. Lunch tomorrow. What? He hates me. He doesn't know you, I replied. I want him to see the real you. After a long pause, Ian sighed. Fine. I'll meet him. But if I don't survive this, it's on you. I laughed in relief. Josh felt unusually nervous later that afternoon. It was the first time he would see Ed play. He changed clothes repeatedly, settling on a black shirt, jeans, and a jacket, still doubting himself. He drove to the field, heart racing. The stands were filled with supporters wearing red and blue. I should have asked which team, he thought, smiling at his own forgetfulness. Then he saw Ed, focused, confident, alive. Josh waved, and Ed's face lit up instantly. He jogged over, breathless. You're wearing the wrong color, Josh teased softly. As long as you're here, it doesn't matter, Ed replied with a smile. Josh stayed, cheering louder than he ever had before. When Ed was fouled, Josh stood up instinctively, shouting in protest. Ed looked toward the stands, met his eyes, and nodded, I'm okay. That moment alone felt like everything. The penalty was awarded. Silence fell. Josh held his breath. Ed scored. The crowd erupted. Josh laughed and clapped, overwhelmed with pride. They won. After the game, Ed found Josh by the car. I told you you'd do great, Josh said warmly. You really believe that? Ed asked. Josh smiled. I felt it. They stood quietly, both realizing something important. Next week would be their last session. Neither of them said it aloud, but the thought lingered heavily between them. At the pub later that night, Josh stayed mostly quiet while Ed introduced him to his friends. Ed eventually returned to Josh's side, resting his head briefly against Josh's shoulder. Tired? Josh asked softly. A little, Ed replied. But I still want to dance, with you. Josh hesitated, then nodded. They moved slowly, close but careful. The noise around them faded as they focused only on each other. I didn't like seeing you dance with someone else once, Josh admitted quietly. Ed smiled gently. I was hoping you'd feel that way. They stayed close, sharing warmth and unspoken feelings. No rush. No pressure. Just them. Later, Josh drove Ed home. Ed was quieter now, holding Josh's hand tightly. You're beautiful, Ed said suddenly. Josh smiled faintly. Only because you see me that way. Ed shook his head. Your heart, that's the best part of you. Josh felt tears rise. This heart, Ed said, placing Josh's hand over his own chest, it's yours. Josh swallowed hard. You should rest. You're meeting Ian tomorrow. You promised. Ed nodded slowly. I'd do anything for you. I know, Josh replied softly. And he meant it. Chapter 19. Josh POV. It was a quiet evening when I got home. Ian was already asleep on the left side of our king-size bed. I stood there in the dim light, overwhelmed by the weight of my own thoughts. I wondered about the truth of my situation, about myself. Was I doing all of this out of selfishness? Was I being vain? No, that couldn't be true. I loved him. I do love him. But Ed's words from earlier that day echoed painfully in my mind. The way he said them, honest, unguarded, broke something inside me. I had almost told him the truth. Almost told him I loved him. Almost said, Ed, I am all yours. I sat beside Ian on the bed and buried my face in my hands. Silent tears slipped through my fingers. I felt awful, like I was betraying the only person who had ever loved me so completely. I was hurting Ian. And I was lying to Ed. Fear crept in slowly, tightening its grip on my chest. Would Ed forgive me when he found out the truth? Would he accept me? Would he still love me the same way? That small ray of hope began to fade. I wiped my tears quickly, careful not to make a sound. I didn't want anyone to see, especially Ian. I let out a quiet sigh and whispered a desperate plea into the darkness. Please, help me. Tell me what to do. I wasn't particularly religious, but in that moment, I was willing to ask anyone who might listen. I repeated the words in my head like a prayer, searching for guidance. Then I heard a soft whisper. Go to bed, Josh. I didn't know if it was my imagination, my conscience, or something else entirely. I looked at Ian. He was still asleep, peaceful and unaware. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I lay down on my side, wiping away the last of my tears. My body felt unbearably heavy, and soon, despite everything, sleep took me. Morning light filtered through the bedroom window. I groaned and rolled over. Well, that explains the night, Ian said lightly. Starting the day with complaints is never a good sign. It's Saturday, I muttered, curling into the mattress and burying my face into the pillow. I heard him laugh. With my eyes still closed, I added, Don't get too comfortable. You're meeting Ed today. You really know how to ruin a mood, he sighed. I smiled faintly and waved my hand. I know. Now let me sleep. Fine, he said, heading for the door. Suddenly, anxiety hit me. I sat up. Ian. He turned back, waiting. Please, behave, I said softly, forcing a weak smile. He rolled his eyes. Wish me luck. Luck? I called out as the door closed behind him. I fell back onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. Please let this go well. Please let it give him a chance. I pulled the quilt over myself, trying to rest again. Ed's POV. I had been sitting in the cafe for 10 minutes, growing impatient. Finally, I called Josh. He answered after a couple of rings, his voice thick with sleep. Hello. Josh. I asked. There was sudden movement on the other end, followed by his panicked voice. Is everything okay? I smiled to myself. He was definitely sleeping. Yes, something did happen, I said calmly. And are you asleep? It's 2 in the afternoon. Oh, come on, it's Saturday, he groaned. And I had to bring someone home last night because that someone wasn't exactly steady. I chuckled. So, about today? Well, I said lightly, your boyfriend hasn't arrived yet. And I'm hungry. There was silence for a moment. He left a while ago, Josh said finally. He's probably nearby, just nervous. Can you look around? I glanced up, and there he was. Ian stood near the entrance, clearly hesitant. Yeah, I said quietly. I see him. Ed. Josh's voice softened. Please be patient. Just give him a chance. I sighed. Josh. Please. I closed my eyes briefly. For you. Thank you, he said softly. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, I echoed. When the call ended, I focused on Ian approaching the table. I took a deep breath. For Josh, I reminded myself. Just for Josh. I crossed my arms, bracing myself as Ian sat down, avoiding my gaze. Let's get this over with, I said coolly. I'm here for Josh. Nothing else. He nodded slowly. I understand. I'm here for him too. He took a breath and began to speak, about losing himself, about failure, about shame, about pushing Josh away when he needed him most, about drowning his guilt in poor choices, about regret. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, his voice barely above a whisper, he said, I hurt him, and I hate myself for it. Silence settled between us. Josh forgives, I said quietly. That's who he is. Ian nodded, tears in his eyes. Can you forgive me? I shook my head slightly. I don't know. You hurt him. And I don't know if I can forget that. We sat there for a long moment. Finally he asked, You love him, don't you? I met his eyes. More than anything I ever have. Chapter 20. Josh POV. So, how did it go? I asked Ed, trying to sound casual despite the anxiety twisting in my chest. I had tried asking Ian, but he refused to say anything. He insisted Ed should be the one to tell me. That only made me more nervous. These 2 men were the most important people in my life, and the thought of tension between them unsettled me deeply. Ed had been unusually quiet since he entered my office. He sat across from me, staring out the window, avoiding my eyes completely. Something was definitely wrong. I smiled gently, giving him time. 10 minutes passed in silence. Ed, I tried again, my voice softer now. Was it that bad? My mind immediately jumped to worst-case scenarios. I couldn't imagine anything worse than the 2 people I loved most becoming enemies. I didn't need them to be close, just civil. Ian could be difficult, I knew that. Ed finally looked at me and sighed, shaking his head. I couldn't do it, he said quietly. I'm sorry. For a moment, I froze. Then I realized what he meant, and I smiled. You don't have to be sorry, I said gently. I only wanted you to hear his side. Did it help, even a little? A little, he admitted reluctantly. Well, that's progress, I said with a small laugh. I don't think I could ever forgive him for what he put you through, he said firmly, his eyes intense. There was something comforting about his protectiveness. Beneath his tough exterior, I knew there was kindness and depth. I walked over to him and reached for his hand. My fingers fit easily into his larger, warmer ones. He looked surprised, unsure, but didn't pull away. You will forgive him someday, I said softly. He scoffed lightly. And how do you know that? I just do, I replied with a smile. Call it a feeling. Like when you trust your instincts during a game. I sat beside him, still holding his hand. Life changes, I continued. Things that feel unbearable now don't always stay that way. Time brings clarity. Maybe you and Ian won't ever be close, but someday, I believe you'll be able to be in the same room without wanting to fight. He exhaled sharply. Why are you like this? Like what? So calm. So accepting. It's irritating. I laughed, unable to stop myself. What do you want me to say? I teased. That I hate him? Yes, he replied flatly. I smiled. Okay, sometimes he does get on my nerves. That seemed to help. He smiled and so did I. We moved into our session, and I began talking about self-love, something people often forget. We spend so much time loving others, I said, that we forget to care for ourselves. But when we learn to love who we are, we stop feeling alone. Ed listened quietly, his attention fixed on me. Life is a gift, I added. But we only realize that when we truly live it. Okay, I asked. Okay, he replied, never breaking eye contact. What? I asked, smiling. Nothing, he said, though I could tell he had more to say. I didn't push. I trusted he would tell me when he was ready. Homework? I asked. He nodded. Do something you loved as a child, I said. Something that brought you comfort. He smiled faintly, lost in thought. Would you come with me? He asked. I'll show you. I nodded instantly. We agreed to meet later at Clarkwood's. The place surprised me. It had been abandoned for years. Once lively, it now felt forgotten. When I arrived, the tall rusted gates creaked as I entered. The old mansion stood quietly ahead, weathered but still beautiful. I followed the path into the woods and found Ed sitting near the pond, skipping stones. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied, smiling. This place, my mom used to bring me here, he explained softly. When she could. I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. It still has charm, I said. It feels like home. He looked at me thoughtfully. You always say what I feel but can't explain. We sat in silence, listening to the sounds around us. Can you show me? I asked. He stood and smiled. Follow me. He ran toward the water and jumped in without warning. Ed! I shouted, panicking, until he surfaced, laughing. You scared me, I scolded, rushing closer. Come on, he said. It's safe. I joined him, my heart racing. We laughed, splashing lightly, the tension easing into something warm and playful. Floating side by side, he looked at me seriously. I care about you, he said quietly. I know, I replied. Don't leave. I won't, I promised. As long as you need me. We stayed there for a long time, talking, laughing, just being. Eventually, we climbed out and walked back to my car. Get in, I said before he could object. You don't mind the seat getting wet? I don't care, I replied. You matter more. He froze for a moment, then smiled and got in. As I drove, he glanced at me. Did you mean that? I kept my eyes on the road. I think I did. Chapter 21. Josh POV. It was around 3 in the morning when a sharp pain in my stomach pulled me out of sleep. I shifted restlessly in bed, trying to ignore it, but the discomfort only grew worse. Clutching my stomach, I sat up abruptly. Something was wrong. I glanced at Ian, still sleeping peacefully beside me. I didn't want to wake him, but the pain was becoming unbearable. I made my way to the bathroom, hoping it might help. As I changed, I noticed faint red patches on my skin. My heart skipped. Had I eaten something I was allergic to? The irritation was uncomfortable but manageable. Unfortunately, the stomach pain didn't ease. I decided to take a warm shower, letting the water calm me as much as it could. Afterward, I changed back into my pajamas, feeling slightly better, but not enough. Carefully, I moved into the living room and searched through the medicine box until I found something suitable. I swallowed the tablet with water and leaned back on the couch, hoping it would work soon. Josh. Ian's voice came from behind me. I turned, sighing. Sorry if I woke you. My stomach hurts. I think it might be an allergy. He knelt in front of me, concern written all over his face. Let's go to the hospital. I don't like how this looks. I nodded weakly. Within minutes, he had helped me into the car, and we drove to the nearest hospital. The doctor examined me carefully. It appears to be an allergic reaction, he said. Did you consume something unusual? I'm not sure, I admitted. The pain is pretty bad. He prescribed medication, and we headed back home. On the way, Ian pulled over near a pharmacy. I'll grab the medicines, he said gently. I'll be quick. As he stepped away, I leaned back in my seat, trying to breathe through the discomfort. My thoughts drifted to work. I wouldn't be able to make it in tomorrow. I texted Tina to reschedule my appointments. Then I thought of Ed. My chest tightened. I wouldn't see him tomorrow either. I didn't want him to worry, but I knew I should let him know. Hey, I won't be able to come tomorrow. Let's meet the day after. Sorry for the sudden change. I sent the message and sighed. Moments later, my phone buzzed. From Ed. What's wrong? Even in pain, I smiled. He always noticed. Not feeling well. Just need a day to rest. Almost instantly, the typing bubble appeared. From Ed. Are you okay? Where are you? Send me your address, I want to see you. I shook my head, smiling softly. It's really okay. Please sleep. I'm with Ian. He left me on read. I knew I had disappointed him, and that hurt more than I expected. By afternoon, I woke feeling groggy but much better. The irritation had faded, and the pain was finally manageable. On my bedside table was a small note. Cooked for you. Take your meds and rest. Love, Ian. I smiled. Ian had always been kind. I was just about to eat when the doorbell rang. Confused, I opened the door and froze. Ed. I stared at him. What are you doing here? He stood there with a backpack and a paper bag, hair slightly messy from rushing around. He smiled warmly. Did you really think I wouldn't figure out where you live? Tina, I guessed. She was very persuasive, he said proudly. I laughed and stepped aside to let him in. He moved around comfortably, unpacking groceries as if he belonged there. He came for me. That thought alone made my chest feel warm. Don't you have school? I asked as I watched him arrange the food. I skipped, he replied casually. Just this once. I shook my head, smiling. When I mentioned Ian had taken me to the hospital, Ed's expression changed. He stepped closer, his concern unmistakable. Why didn't you call me? He asked quietly. It was the middle of the night, I replied. I don't care, he said firmly. I would have come. I touched his hand gently. I'm okay now. Really? He rested his forehead against mine for a moment, exhaling slowly. I just want to take care of you, he said. I want to be here. So, stay, I whispered with a small smile. He surprised me by lifting me carefully and carrying me to the bedroom. Ed. I laughed softly. He laid me down gently, then returned with the soup Ian had made. I'm just making sure it's safe, he said seriously, tasting it first. I laughed. You're impossible. He fed me patiently, watching me closely until I finished. Afterward, he helped me take my medicine and tucked me in. Sleep, he said softly. I'll be right here. He pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead. Get well soon, he whispered. Emotion welled in my chest. I reached for him. Stay with me. He smiled and lay beside me. I leaned against him, feeling safe and calm. You always surprise me, he murmured. I love you. Wrapped in his quiet presence, I drifted back to sleep. The safest place on earth. Chapter 22. Ian's POV. I glanced at the clock. 6 p.m. Worry settled in my chest almost instantly. I'd finished most of my work for the day, and honestly, my focus had been slipping anyway. I decided to take a chance and leave early. My manager was a reasonable guy. Hopefully, he'd understand. I walked to his cabin and gently knocked, peeking inside. Hey, do you have a minute? I asked with a small smile. He returned the smile, raising one finger to signal he needed a moment. I stepped inside when he waved me in and took a seat across from him, waiting while he finished a phone call. Sorry about that, he said once he hung up. Month-end chaos. Tell me about it, I replied with a light laugh. So, he said, leaning back slightly, what's up? I was hoping I could leave a little early today, I explained. I've wrapped up most of my tasks. My roommate, also my best friend, isn't feeling well, and I'm worried he hasn't been taking proper care of himself. He didn't hesitate. Of course. Go on. If the work's done, you're good. Tell your friend to take care. Relief washed over me. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I packed up quickly and headed home. Josh had always been careless when it came to his health. And despite everything, despite how things had changed, I still cared. Maybe more than I should. I unlocked the apartment quietly, not wanting to wake him if he was asleep. After setting my shoes aside, I noticed something odd, more than one plate in the sink. Then I checked the fridge, full of groceries. That definitely wasn't Josh. A strange feeling crept in as I walked toward the bedroom and gently opened the door. Josh was asleep, peacefully, leaning against Ed. I exhaled slowly, a bittersweet smile tugging at my lips. Of course. I closed the door without a sound and poured myself a drink, trying to steady my thoughts. I reminded myself, again, that I couldn't think like a boyfriend anymore. That part of my life was over. Josh was safe. He was loved. Ed truly cared for him. I sat on the couch, drink in hand, memories quietly replaying in my mind. Had Josh ever truly loved me the way I loved him? Or had his heart always leaned toward Ed, pulled by something stronger? I heard movement and looked up. Ed stepped into the living room, hair slightly messy, eyes tired. I gave him a small nod. Want a drink? I offered. No, thanks, he said, grabbing water from the fridge. Then he glanced at me. Do you always drink? I knew the question carried more meaning than it sounded. Not like I used to, I replied honestly. Just sometimes. He studied me for a moment but didn't push further. How's Josh? I asked. He's better, Ed said. I brought some food. I was worried. I'm glad you did, I replied. He tends to take his health for granted. Ed smiled faintly, eyes drifting toward the bedroom door. He wanted me to stay, but I ended up falling asleep. I should head out now. I don't want to wake him. Just tell him to take care. You should tell him yourself, I said quietly. It'll mean more coming from you. He shook his head. He'll understand. Please, look after him. At the door, he paused and turned back to me. I did this for Josh, he said calmly. I hate that you're his boyfriend, but I love him more than I hate you. And with that he left. I stared at the closed door for a long moment. Damn. Would we ever be anything close to friends? Josh POV. I woke up feeling cold. Reaching out beside me, I felt only empty space. My eyes fluttered open, the room dim. I checked my phone. 6:30 p.m. I groaned softly. Did I really sleep that long? It wasn't there. After washing up, I checked the last of the marks on my skin. They were gone. My stomach felt better too. Relief filled me as I stepped into the living room. Ian was on the couch, watching a game. You're home early, I said. Sure am, he replied, smiling. How are you feeling? Hungry? Much better. And yes, very hungry. As I grabbed a glass of water, I asked, Where's Ed? He left, Ian said. Asked me to tell you to take care. I frowned slightly. He should have woken me up. I told him that, Ian added with a small smirk. I looked at him seriously. You didn't say anything else, right? Nope. Just like you asked. I hugged him softly. Thank you. He cleared his throat, pulling back. Let's eat the food your boyfriend brought. He's not my boyfriend, I corrected. Not yet. Ian raised an eyebrow. Well, he probably will be. And when he finds out I kept secrets, I'm blaming you. I laughed. Fair enough. Later, I texted Ed. Me, you should have woken me up. Ed, you look too peaceful. I couldn't. I felt empty when I woke up. Ed, okay. Next time I will. Me, you won't, will you? Ed, no. I smiled, heart warm. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The safest place on earth isn't a location. It's the people who stay when you need them most. Chapter 23. Ed's POV. I walked toward my last lecture, my heart racing. I couldn't stop thinking about Josh and the text he'd sent me earlier. Yesterday had been amazing. I tried not to imagine jumping on him or stealing a kiss, but honestly, I would have taken whatever he was willing to give. Ed, listen up. Sean's voice called from behind, and his hand landed on my shoulder. I'm literally so late for Professor Alton's lecture, I said, brushing past him. We can talk later, okay? I hurried up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. Sean caught up and stopped me. Aren't you curious about who got selected tomorrow? I turned to him, surprised. You know. Yeah, he said with a grin. I nudged him. Then tell me. My hand landed nervously on his shoulder. This mattered, not just for me but for my family, for Mom, and for Josh. Sean leaned closer, whispering in my ear, It's us. You and me. I told you it would be a tough call. We're in, dude. I jumped in shock and hugged him tightly. We did it. Oh my God, we did it. I laughed and hugged him again. Relax, Sean said, pulling back slightly. The clubs will be officially announced tomorrow. We just need to wait for the details. It's not the end of the world if it's somewhere else. I froze. Somewhere else? Different clubs, he explained. Best ones aren't always local, Manchester, LA, even Spain. I know it's hard, Ed, but if this is what we want, sacrifices are part of it. Josh will understand. I think you just need to wait for the official announcement. I nodded, though my mind was spinning. Leave Phoenix? Leave home? Leave Josh? Josh had Ian. Did I even have a place in his heart? I loved him, yes, but did he feel the same? The way he looked at me, the subtle touches, the way he responded to me. I could feel it. But could I risk everything for a dream that might take me away from him? Video calls, vacations, it'll be all right, Sean said. But I wasn't so sure. I didn't want to be apart from Josh. Maybe I'd have to say no. Josh POV. I sat with a patient, gently asking, Have you ever been in love? He looked surprised at my question. I smiled. I've had my share of experiences, yes. And have you ever been heartbroken? He asked, a shadow across his face. I looked down, remembering the days Ian had hurt me, piece by piece, until I felt empty. But even then I wanted to be there for him. More than love, it was empathy. Yes, I said softly. I've been heartbroken. What did you do to heal? He asked. I smiled faintly. I forgave him, and then myself. I listened. I understood. Forgiveness isn't always about getting back together. It's about freeing yourself. He nodded slowly. Whoever ends up with you is very lucky. I laughed. Maybe. But I'm human too, I make mistakes. We talked for a while longer, and when he left, I couldn't stop thinking about Ed. My heart fluttered as I waited for him. When he arrived, I practically ran to open the door, grinning like a teenager. Hi, I said, blushing. Hi, he chuckled, stepping inside. We began our session, discussing life choices, priorities, and how to move forward. I encouraged him, do what matters most. Later, you won't regret it. He frowned. But what if you want two things? And choosing one means losing the other? I froze. His question hit too close to home. Then choose what matters most to you now. You can't have everything, but you can honor what matters most. He nodded quietly. Then, almost casually, he said, I got selected. I froze. When? Why didn't you tell me? He hesitated, voice low. I pulled him into a tight hug, heart pounding. I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. I knew you could do it. He smiled sadly, looking away. I tilted his chin to face me. Aren't you happy? I am, he whispered, voice soft. But it's good news. You have to celebrate, I said, trying to lift his spirits. He nodded, hugging me again, but there was a weight in his eyes. Something I couldn't ignore. We left the office and went to a club. I watched him with pride as he talked about his achievements, but that shadow lingered. He excused himself briefly, and I saw his phone light up. Sean. I watched as he answered, then froze as Sean's voice erupted. Ed. Spain. This is incredible. We're going to the biggest clubs. Are you listening? I felt my chest tighten. Everything clicked into place. The sacrifices. The choices. The distance. Ed was going to leave. And there was nothing I could do. When he returned, I forced a smile and held his hand. Are you okay? He asked. Yeah, let's eat, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. After dinner, I drove him home. Silence stretched between us. I finally spoke, trying to soften the tension. Tomorrow is our last day together. He took my hand, fingers entwining with mine. I don't want it to end, he said softly. Tears threatened, but I held them back. I couldn't let him see my pain. He needed to chase his dream. My love could wait. I pulled up to his curb and he leaned into me, burying his face in my neck. I held him tightly, whispering assurances, while my heart ached. I can't, I whispered. You should go. Ed didn't respond. He left with a sigh, the door closing with a soft thud behind him. I collapsed, tears flowing freely. My love, my dreams, my heart, all tangled together. Ian found me soon after, kneeling beside me. Josh, what happened? He's leaving. I love him. I can't, I sobbed, clutching him. I'm here, Ian said gently, holding me as I cried for hours until exhaustion took over. I drifted into a restless sleep, gripping Ian's hand. Ed, please don't leave me, I murmured. I'll always be here for you, Ian whispered, kissing my forehead. For now, that was enough. Chapter 24. Josh POV. I woke up from a restless sleep, my head pounding and eyes swollen from tears. Morning light streamed through my bedroom window, and I felt the weight of reality settle on me. Today was Ed's last day here. My pillow was damp with the evidence of last night's crying. Ian had been there to support me, and I was grateful for that, even if I felt completely drained. Footsteps approached. Ian entered, holding a cup of coffee and a gentle smile. I turned to the window, not ready to face anyone. I just wanted silence. He sat beside me and gently turned my face toward him. You can't ignore me, you know, he said with a playful smile. I couldn't hold back anymore and hugged him tightly. He rubbed my shoulders softly. You don't have to carry all this alone, he whispered. Talk to him. Maybe there's a way. I shook my head, pulling away. Ian, you don't understand. If I tell him, he might give up, and I can't let that happen. He deserves his dream. Everything he's ever wanted. My voice cracked and I sniffled. Then, go with him, Ian said suddenly. I froze. My eyes widened. Yeah, he continued. If he can't stay, you can go with him. You can start fresh there, build a new life. He brushed a tear from my cheek. I can't just leave. I have responsibilities, loans, this house, my office, and I can't leave you alone either, I said softly, looking down. He chuckled and kissed my cheek lightly. Don't worry about me. I'll find a nice partner. Yeah, right, I said, rolling my eyes. I know you too well for that. He sighed. So, what are you going to do? I took a deep breath. I'll wait. Wait. His eyes widened. Yes. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the warmth ease my headache. I don't know for how long. But I'll wait. That's what people in love do. They wait. Ian smiled softly. Why couldn't I get this kind of love? I messed up, didn't I? Oh, Ian, I pulled him close, hugging him. I'll always love you. Always. I kissed his head gently. After breakfast, Ian got ready for work. I watched him adjust his tie in the mirror, shaking my head. Let me fix it, I said, stepping forward. You're going to ruin it. I carefully adjusted his tie until it was perfect. That looks much better than before, I said, turning him toward the mirror. He smirked. Thanks. Are you going to the office? He asked. I'm not sure I can face him, say goodbye, I admitted. He kissed my forehead. It'll be fine. You'll manage. I nodded, but my heart ached. Hours later, a loud bang jolted me awake. My doorbell rang continuously. Groaning, I threw open the door, only to find Ed standing there, his expression fierce and urgent. What are you doing? I gasped, sleep still clouding my mind. Before I could react, he stepped in, closing the door behind him with a firm thud. He moved close, pinning me gently against the wall with a look I hadn't seen before, raw, desperate emotion. I could feel his warmth, his tension, and I knew I had to stay calm. My fingers brushed his collarbone and slowly, his breathing steadied. I cupped his cheek. Ed, what's wrong? He buried his face in my shoulder, clutching me. Why did you cancel our last meeting? Don't I deserve a goodbye? His voice was soft, yet heavy with hurt. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. I wasn't feeling well. I wanted to rest, but we can still meet. His eyes widened. Yes, we will. I shook my head firmly. No. You will go to LA. You'll chase your dream. You can't give that up for me. Ed's eyes narrowed, his voice rising. I'm not leaving you. That's final. I don't care about the club or training. I'm staying here with you. I care, Ed. I shouted. I can't be yours. I can't ask you to give up your dreams for me. I love you, but I can't hold you back. He stepped closer, hands cupping my face. Because I love you, Josh, he said gently. That broke me. I couldn't hold back anymore. I shuddered, tears streaming down my face as I leaned into him. He hugged me tightly, grounding me. I couldn't say goodbye, not because you didn't deserve it, but because it would have been too hard, he murmured. I buried my face in his chest. Please, go to LA. Be the best you can be. I'll be here, always. His tears ran down, mixing with mine. I pulled away slightly, gripping his shoulders, forcing him toward the door. We held each other one last time, both crying softly. Finally, I closed the door behind him, heart aching. Sitting on the floor, I let my sobs out fully. This was the last time I would see him today. The last time I would hear his voice. The last time he would hold me. The last time he would be mine. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.